And we are live. Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to She Built It Boss Lady Chronicles. I am Dr. Sharita Gaskins Tillett. I am your host, and this is the show where we feature the amazing stories of women who are owning their power to transform their lives. And I am super excited about tonight's guest. This is something of a podcast switch or share or whatever, because I was on her show a little bit ago, and now she's here with me. Before we get started, I just want to give a few minutes for folks to come on. If you're watching us live, please say hi in the comments, put your questions in the comments. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, still put your questions in the comments because we are happy to answer those questions. For those boss ladies in the DMV area, you missed a treat this past Saturday. We had our brunch and vision board party and we had a ball. So it was great to meet so many of you guys in person, and I look forward to meeting some of you again soon. The dates have been set for a weekend for me 2025. It's taking place October 2nd through the 5th in Grand Cayman. So get on that VIP wait list because the VIP wait list registration will be open to the VIP wait list about a week ahead of everybody else. So if it sells out during that week, you're going to miss out. So make sure you get on that VIP wait list. Those registration is going to be open really, really soon. All right, so let us get started. So I have joining me tonight Dr. Shanice Jones Cameron. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Communication at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. She researches health and wellness discourses that are distributed through social media with a focus on Black women's health and well-being digital networks and communities. Dr. Jones Cameron is also the founder of Her Guided Evolution, a digital platform, podcast, and YouTube channel that hosts conversations about self development and encourages women to practice holistic self care and prioritize their well being. She is also the creator of Beyond Productivity, a workload management and well being system aimed at helping technology companies improve employee wellness and efficiency. Welcome, Dr. Shanice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and to, engage in this amazing conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. So I usually like to start by having my guests take us through your professional journey. How did you come to be a professor? How did you come to get a PhD? Like, what was your journey like? Did you always know this was something that you wanted to do?
Well, that's a great question and very interesting. I like to say that I didn't know what I wanted to do directly, but the way my life kind of unfolded, I saw signs and signals that this was kind of the direction that I needed to go in. So I remember when I was like probably a teenager, at one point, I just remember thinking like, okay, I would love to get a doctorate and be Dr. Shanice Jones at the time. So I remember I was talking to my mom and I remember I said, Dr. Shanice Jones, that sounds kind of strange. It sounds kind of weird. She was like, no, it sounds great. Dr. Shanice Jones sounds fantastic. And I was like, okay, well, thank you, Mom. I appreciate that. So she was very much always instilling in me,
Yes.
like, no, you can do, if you want a doctorate, you can get a doctorate. There is nothing that you need to be like saying that is contrarian to that. So very fortunate to have my parents kind of their support. And it was just kind of, I grew up in a house. I'm the youngest of three. It was just kind of understood that you're going to college and that's it. So I ended up going to North Carolina Central University, which is in Durham, North Carolina. It's a historically Black college and university, and HBCU, go Eagles. And when I started at Central, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I want to be an attorney. And so I started out with several different majors. I think I was a criminal justice major at one point. Maybe I think when I registered, I was initially a business major. Like, what was I don't know what was, I was, just
Yes.
18 years old, fresh out of college. I mean, fresh out of high school. You're like, okay, what am I doing with my life? But I was sure that I wanted to be an attorney at that point. So the second semester of my freshman year, I started having some conversations with folks, and I was like, okay, I want to be an attorney. North Carolina Central University has an excellent law school, definitely one of the best in North Carolina for sure. And I was like, okay, so what I would like to do is I am kind of interested in politics. I've been told that I'm a good writer. I'll just double major in political science and English. That's great because that would probably help me with the LSAT and the bar and just all of the things.
Right.
So I wanted to be an attorney, which in retrospect, not a fit. But
Well, how
but
far down that road did you go?
I mean, so I stuck with my majors all the way through the end. Right now, to this day, I have a bachelor's degree in English and I have a bachelor's degree in political science. But what ended
Oh,
up
wow.
happening around the second year of my undergraduate degree, one of my class assignments was to talk with someone who was in the career presently that you were interested in entering. Okay. So here's where, the fork in the road kind of appears and how I start just kind of feeling like the stars aligned. Okay. So I spoke to an attorney and he, in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, I'm going to be an attorney. It's about to be like, the TV shows. I'm going to be in court. I'm going to have my briefcase. Like these are all the things that I had kind of envisioned. But when I
Sure.
talked to him, he was like, yeah, you don't go into being an attorney because you want to make a lot of money. I mean, you make a good living, but really it's about helping people. And it's not like you see in the movies. It's more so like, a lot of paperwork and preparing outside of the courtroom and et cetera, et cetera. So after that conversation, I kind of left with a good sense of, okay, this is kind of not so much what I want to do. I'm not trying to sit behind anybody's desk that long and doing paperwork. So I think I need to kind of explore other options.
But
Okay.
you know what? I think it's great that you had that experience though, because not everybody does. And so you could have, gone through all of undergrad thinking you wanted to be an attorney because you didn't know what that really meant, and then gone to law school.
Yes, yes. And that's why I recommend like everyone. I just wish more people had that opportunity to actually see, like, okay, I think I want this, but what does that actually look like in practice? Because a whole lot of
Right.
things sound good until you get down to the details.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I kind of left that conversation like, not so much for me, but I'm just going to stick it out because I don't quite know what else I want to do. So political science and English sounds good. I think I can make it with that. So what ended up happening, I ended up joining this program called the Ronald E. McNair Scholars program, which is a program that is intended to increase the diversity among people with PhDs. So it targets minorities who like minorities in the field of or in who minorities among all of those who are PhD holders. So racial
Mhm.
minorities, for example, particularly Black folks, women, low income folks. So I ended up getting into this program and it was a program at UNC Chapel Hill, but they took 5 students from my undergraduate university. And so I ended up doing the Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program because I thought, okay, I never really thought about being a professor per se. But this kind of sounds like what I can get with this. I can get with this. And it's interesting because my mom is a teacher. She's a
Mhm.
retired teacher, but I remember thinking, like, I remember being in the 4th grade and thinking to myself, like, it would be cool to be a teacher. I think I could kind of see myself standing up in front of the classroom and doing these things. But my mom was always like, she was in the field and that was her career. And she was just more so like, I want something different for you. Don't, don't do this. So I
Right,
just
right.
kind of like, she said things about like the pay and things like that, and she was just like, do something else. That was essentially like her
Yes.
mentality. So I kind of like took that out of my mind and shoved it in my back pocket and really didn't think much of it. And as I kind of grew and evolved, I kind of realized like I don't have any business in anybody's K through 12 anyway, so that probably was good advice.
Sure.
But it's interesting, like I ended up still teaching, just more so, of course, at
Yeah,
the
a different
collegiate
level.
level. Right. So I joined the Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program, completed that program, and I was kind of set and sure that I wanted to, go to grad school and get a PhD and be Dr. Shanice Jones at the time. But toward the end of my bachelor's degree, I started having a lot of doubts. I mean, in my defense, I was going through a lot of changes. I met my husband the my I think either my junior year, my senior year. I met my husband, I think my senior year in college. And so I was pretty resolute, like, okay. And when he proposed, I was like, yes, I'm resolute on the fact that I want to get married, but I don't know about grad school. And in retrospect, I was just scared. I was
Yeah.
scared.
So
I'm gonna be
what
transparent.
were you gonna go to grad school for? Because initially it was law, so you're graduating with political science and English. So what's the master's gonna be?
Exactly. That was part of what I didn't know and what I was like really hesitant about, because I was just like, okay, I don't like political science or English. I don't see myself going into either of these, but what would I do? And so that was part of like the trepidation, because I just did not have that resolve in the sense of I am going to go study this. And I just kind of ended up really developing like a ton of anxiety. And part of it was, interestingly, the GRE. So, of course,
Mhm.
the exam that you take, for anyone who's listening
Sure.
who's unfamiliar, like the GRE is kind of like the SAT for graduate schools. And so it was to the point like, this is my senior year in undergrad. It was to the point that I would literally like have like panic attacks anytime I went to go study for the GRE. And so with everything that was going on, I was about to get married. I just was not sure what I would even go to graduate school for. I decided I'm not going to go to grad school. I'm not going to go to grad school. And so that was a very pivotal point. And to make a long story short, I just kind of worked at random places for the next 4.5 years. I'll say 4 years. I just worked at random places. I worked at Enterprise, I worked at a shoe store. Like it was just this journey of just evolution that was very painful. I had to do a lot of self-effacing. This was not, I was just like, how did I go from graduating summa cum laude from undergrad to like not having my life together and just kind
Well,
of
but
doing
you know
all of
what?
these
But
things.
I think that it's kind of an unrealistic expectation that we put on ourselves and also that we put on young people. Because when you are 21 years old, coming out of undergrad, you don't know what you want your life to
You
be
don't.
necessarily. And, like I said, fortunately for you, you had the experience of being able to talk with a lawyer and find out what the day-to-day life was like and decide that you wanted to course correct. But you also don't know what you want. So I understand that especially as high achieving women, we have this idea and an ideal of what we think our life is supposed to be, and so your life wasn't measuring up to that standard. I get that, but at the same time I think it's great that you had the opportunity to try a lot of to try some different things, because I think that's the key, is to try things on and explore and investigate before we commit to things. We have this habit of committing to things that we don't fully understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And so yes, you're exactly right. Like I look back at this Shanice of today, looking back at Shanice back then, I'm just like, you're just figuring it out. And I think kind of to your
Exactly.
point, figuring it out is very underrated. And I
Yes.
think we kind of glorify like the people who have it all together and just seem like so polished and put together. But at that point, I was just figuring it out, and figuring it out is messy. Okay, it is messy. It is messy. So the turning point about 4 years after I finished undergrad, a little 4.5 years. I graduated in December because I had two majors. So December 2011. This was around 2015. I decided you know what? I think I'm ready to go to grad school because I'm not doing this anymore. I was just like, girl, you are 25. You need to just figure something out in your life. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, look, you just need to figure something out in your life. Oh yeah, and in that 4 years, I had a stint as an entrepreneur. I've always loved web design. I taught myself like HTML, CSS when I was like 14. I always loved web design. So yeah, that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back because I'll just say I did not have a good experience with my first kind of stint with entrepreneurship. And that's when I was just like, girl, you got to do something else. And
Okay.
so I decided, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but, I'm going to just go to graduate school. And in the back of my mind, I was just like, I do, like, I don't want to be a web designer, but I do kind of want to do something with the internet. I want to start like a personal development type space or platform or something like that. But, I still got to figure something out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to graduate school. I'm going to get a master's degree and I'm going to work on my personal development space at the same time. And if it turns into something, I'll do that. Um, or when I finish my master's degree, I'll go on to a PhD program if I decide that that's not what I want to do. So, in the course of deciding and trying to figure it out, I was just like, okay, I need to commit to something. Okay, so that's kind of the pause there.
So how did you get interested in personal development?
That is a fantastic question. I have just always loved it. And just kind of when I think back on just kind of Shanice as a kid and Shanice as a teenager, I was always that person that people would like kind of talk to and confide in and give advice. I remember even my big sisters at some point, like I said, I'm the youngest of three, they would be asking me questions like, for my insights on things. And I'm just like, I just kind of always loved it. When I was in high school, I was in this program called Divas. I was actually the president of the program my senior year in high school. And it was a program determined individuals vying for achievement and self-respect. Shout out
Mhm.
to PME Reese. I love you. You're just someone who is very like instrumental in kind of helping me kind of realize this part of myself. But it was just always I just always felt this desire to improve myself and to be
Mhm.
better and to not stay stagnant and stuck. So that has just always been like part of my identity to a degree. And I remember, interestingly, now that we're talking about Divas, at one point in Divas, I was we were like needed to raise money for the organization, and I was 16 years old. I got up in front of a room of, I don't know, maybe it was like what is it, like the Rotary Club, the Writers Club, what, I can't quite remember, but it was a room of probably like 100, 150 people, adults, like mostly men. We were invited there to speak and they were donating to us and things like that. And I got up there and I just talked like I'm talking to you right now. I was not nervous. I was talking about the organization. I was talking about the impact the organization had on my life and me as far as like my development as a leader. And that was when one of those moments where I was like, so public speaking, communicating, there's something here. So
Okay.
kind of like just something that had kind of been a theme throughout my life, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that was, I just realized I want to do a personal development, something online with personal development, but I want to go to grad school and just kind of see how this shakes out.
Okay.
Well, interestingly, so I bought the book for the GRE so I could begin studying again because I was like, you know what, I am not gonna let this GRE get me this time. And my husband, he's an academic, he's a professor, and he was a professor long before I was, and he was just like, you do not need to be letting the GRE stress you out and be like something that keeps you from grad school. Like you just
Right.
need to move
Sure.
past this. Like, and I needed that kind of like realization, like, come on, you can do this. Like I really needed that. But I decided I'm gonna go back to grad school. I'm gonna get these GRE books and I'm gonna make it work. So I made the decision. I'm going to go back to grad school. Definitely had a few logistical issues. Like I remember this, and I feel like this was kind of like a test from the universe. I signed up for the GRE, and the way the GRE is, you have to sign up with the exact name that is on your license.
Mm,
No questions asked. They don't play because people could cheat and all of these things. So I realized that when I signed up for the GRE, I put my name down as Shanice Gabrielle Jones Cameron. Gabrielle is my middle name. It's still my name. I just added on Cameron, which is my married name. And then I realized my license says Shanice Jones Cameron. I had already paid. And it was not cheap. It was quite a coin
right,
at the
right.
time. I think it's definitely like a couple hundred, maybe $250. I'd already registered. And so I called immediately after I signed up, and it said no refunds. Or you can only get a partial refund if you needed to not take the test. So I ended up calling, telling the lady on the phone like the situation, like, okay, I put the wrong name. What am I gonna do? And so she said, well, unfortunately, I was like, literally, this was 5 minutes ago, not even 5 minutes ago. Can
Wow.
I please get a refund and re register for this exam? She said, no. They
Wow.
gave me a partial refund. And I remember just half of my money back. And I just remember sitting there thinking, if I want to go to grad school, this is the only time that I could register for this exam and still go. But I don't want to have to pay this money again. This is messed up. Maybe this is a sign. And I said, nope, I've been here before with this test. And I'm not going to let this test stand between me and what I said I was going to do.
Right.
So I immediately went ahead, bypassed all the chatter in my brain, and I re registered for the exam, paying another $250 5 minutes after I was told that I could only get a partial refund.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I made that decision. So that was kind of like the logistical challenge related to going to grad school. But then I ended up realizing that in the course of all of this, I was pregnant. I was pregnant with my first child. So I'm like, of course, of course,
Like
of
everything is
course.
stacking
As
up
soon
in
as
the
I
other
decide,
direction.
yep, as soon as I decide that I'm gonna go to grad school, I found out that I was pregnant. So, long story short, that was another crossroads where it was just like, okay, so am I going to go to grad school or am I going to be a mom? What am I gonna do? What are we doing here? What's happening? And I thought back to when I was a kid and when I was a child, and that's why it's so it's things just kind of align. My mom actually went back to get her bachelor's degree when I was a baby. I don't even know that I was a year old yet. And my mom went back to get her bachelor's degree. So she had three kids, a husband, and she went back to get her bachelor's degree. And so I stopped and when I was going back and forth, like, what am I going to do? I thought about the fact that my mom was able to do it. She was able to go to school with kids and a husband. And I say, you know what? I could do it too. And so I ended up deciding I was going to go back and get my master's degree at UNC Charlotte in the Department of Communication because I ended up finding out in the course of all of this, like, I love social media. Like, I love social media. This was like the height of Black Twitter, and just it was just something that I really loved. And I have always loved the internet. I've always been like a techie, but I just never thought that, that this was like, I never put the pieces together. This could be a career, but I finally kind of
Yes.
realized that this was what I wanted to do. And so I decided I'm going to go back to school. And I started my master's degree when my daughter, my oldest daughter, she is now 8. I started it when she was 3 months old. I had her in May, the end of May, and I started graduate school in August.
But I think it's so important that we have those role models. You talked about your mom. People. I often tell people that you are leaving a legacy, either on purpose or by default, because somebody is
Mhm.
always watching what you're doing. And so, your mom, all she was doing was whatever she had to do. She decided that she had 3 kids, but she was going back to school. She didn't know that she was literally being a vision board for you for the future when you were at that crossroads and needed to decide whether, if you could be both a mother and a grad student.
Yes, yes, and I'm just that's beautifully said. Like, I'm just so grateful for my mom, and she's just I'm just so fortunate to even have sorry, I'm getting emotional because, it's my mom, and, like, I am who I am because of who she is. And
Yeah.
so that really gave me the courage to say, like, you know what, I'm gonna go. I can do both. I don't have to decide like, oh, everything's going by the wayside because it's not going exactly according to plan and what I thought it should look like. I'm gonna do it anyway. So I got my master's degree. I was breastfeeding and pumping in between classes while I was getting my master's degree. And I decided, like, you know what, this was going really well. I was just like, I'm back in the flow of school. Like, this is me. Like, I can do this. I'm good at school, summa cum laude in undergrad. I'm now on my master's degree, doing well, excited to be learning again. And because I was in grad school and I had a child, I kind of let my personal development space dreams kind of fall by the wayside
Mhm.
because
Okay.
graduate school is very much all
Sure.
kind of consuming and whew, it was a lot. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go get my PhD. I have this dream of, I remember little Shanice saying I want to be Dr. Shanice Jones. Now it's gonna be Dr. Shanice Jones Cameron. I'm gonna go. Okay. So I started preparing I'd made the decision. I started preparing my application, just like kind of the preliminary things for your application, like your personal statement and, those things. And as right after I decided that I was going to go get a PhD, I found out I was pregnant again. And not only was I pregnant again, it was twins.
Well,
So,
you'd already proven to yourself that it could be done.
yeah, yeah. And so, I had a moment of, you have to be kidding me. Like, like, is this, is this serious? Like, this isn't really serious. And so, yes, I ended up getting pregnant with twins right after I decided I was going to go get a PhD, which, I just kind of, as you said, I had the example of my mom. I'm just like, my mom did it with 3 kids, or she, went back to school with
Right.
3 kids. It's the PhD. But you know what? My husband is an academic. Thankfully, he has a flexible schedule. Um, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I the wildest thing is I ended up going into preterm labor with my twins. I was on bed rest in the hospital for 12 days. But I
Mm.
still before that I got my applications in. I think I turned in my last like my class paper in my master's program like 3 days before I finally had to go into the hospital and be on bed rest. And I got my acceptance to UNC Chapel Hill for my PhD program while I was on bed rest in the hospital
Wow.
that December. That December.
So
And based
now,
on the timing, I was first round of admissions. So
well, congratulations to you, right?
thank
So,
you.
I
Yes.
mean, I think, like I said, I think it's wonderful that you, had that resilience that, in spite of, that you had the example, that you decided you were going to make it work. And you not only made it work, you actually thrived in your master's program, clearly. And then,
Yeah.
you found out about the twins. That kind of, I'm sure, knocked you down a little bit for a minute, but you got right back up. And so now tell me, how did we get to where we are today, to the things that are your passions? Because you said that you kind of let the personal development thing, which most of us do, to be, if we're honest, while we're in the trenches of professional school, our self-care, our personal development does kind of take a backseat to the demands of the academic program. So how did you get back around to your own personal development, but also wanting to create a platform for other people?
Yes, fantastic question. And what brought me to finally circling back to my own personal development and then kind of developing my own personal development space was the reality of being a mom of three, because my twins were 8 months old when I started my PhD program. It was being a mom of three in a PhD program. My mental health was just in the trash because I had the complications of my pregnancy, and then I just kind of kept right on into my PhD program. My first class of my PhD program was just, I had to redo so many assignments, and my mental health was, it was just not good. Anxiety, depression. I had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and so I carried all of this into my PhD program. And so I remember walking into my therapist's office and just kind of disclosing all of this to her. And she kind of helped me get grounded again. And then at that point, I was just like, this is unsustainable. I have to get serious about my own self care in this, because what's the good of a PhD if you're mentally
Right.
unwell as a
Sure. Sure.
consequence. And so that's when I started getting serious about my self-care. Like, I'd been practicing yoga since 2013. And so I started practicing yoga again. My husband and I, actually, our whole family, we went vegan in 2018. So I've been a vegan since 2018. I began journaling and just listening to podcasts more consistently. Like, I'd been listening to the Life Coach School podcast for probably about 3 years, 3 or 4 years at that point. So I started listening to that regularly. I started reading personal development books. Like, what were the ones I was listening to? The Alchemist. I read The Alchemist and the Four Agreements and all of these. And I was just like, you know what? I'm working on myself, but I think, I can keep putting it off, but I need to start that personal development space that I've been talking about for all those years. And so,
Mhm.
kind of immersing myself in self-care, that's when it kind of cohered. And I think it was 2019 I released the first iteration of Her Guided Evolution. And then through the trademarking process, I switched over to Her Guided Evolution. And I think it was 2020. And so that's from there, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. It was funny because while I was in my PhD program, everyone knew like I loved podcasts and I listened to podcasts. I was kind of like the podcast girl. Like, it was just funny. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. So Her Guided Evolution was born out of that, out of this journey, this really intense emotional journey, and my mental health struggles, and realizing I'm growing, I'm learning. I felt the urge to start this years and years ago. There's no time like the present. I need to stop putting this off and put fear behind me,
Right.
or at least carry it side by side with me and do this anyway.
So tell me about the name, her guided evolution. How did you come up with that title? What's the significance?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the earlier iteration that was in 2019, but I realized like, okay, like I don't want to get sued. So I want to own this name, so I probably need to trademark it. So it really came about in the trademarking process. I kept striking out with name after
Mm,
name, and then something in me was like, and I was talking to my best friend. Hey, Shanice, if you see this, I was talking to my best friend. Her name's Shanice. My name's Shanice, and it's just funny that that's my best friend. But we were just going back and forth, and I was telling her like, "Girl, I don't know what I'm gonna do about this name." She was like, "Oh, oh, oh, I got an idea." She was like, "How about guided evolution?" And I was like, "I really love that." And I was like, "You know what? How about her guided evolution?" It's just like, yeah. So it was really a meeting of the minds with my best friend. And part of how we arrived, or how she arrived at it, and like in our conversation, because she was like with me in the trenches trying to figure out this name, it was very much like I just wanted to, I was thinking about, it's a space where I wanted to be about evolving and, you know,
Yes.
just just being guided by this inner truth, or this inner like experience and this intuition that is moving you toward like developing and deciding that, I'm not going to stay stagnant. I'm going to evolve, even though it's uncomfortable, even though other people might not understand it. All of these things, I was like, you know what? Perfect. So that's
Yeah,
how
I
the name
love
was
it.
born.
So tell me what you okay, so you have the podcast. What else are you doing in that space?
Yeah, so I have my podcast and my YouTube channel. And kind of interestingly, when I started Her Guided Evolution, kind of something that kind of came out of that as well, kind of like that period of mental health struggles, trying to figure things out. I ended up creating a time management program like for myself, because I'm a mom with 3 kids in a PhD program. I'm the only parent in my cohort. There were a couple other people who had kids in the program, but I was the only parent in my cohort. And I part of the mental health aspect of it is like I have to find a way to do this in a sustainable manner. And so that's when my time management program came about. At the time, I was just calling it Her Guided Coaching or whatever. But later on, I started calling it Beyond Productivity. And so, Beyond Productivity, it is time management, but it's time management without sacrificing self care.
Mhm.
It is rooted in this idea of I need to be well no matter what I'm doing, and my time management needs to reflect my commitments to self care and being well. So now, with my coaching and trying to work with corporations, that is really the crux and the foundation of my philosophy surrounding time management. Time management should give you more time for the things that you love to do. It should give you more time for the things that you feel like are spiritually aligned, purpose aligned with your purpose. That is what time management should do. It should not just be like this very, and I say this all the time, any folks, Her Guided Evolution folks, you've heard me say this a million times, like it shouldn't, in my view, time management should not be serving this very like capitalistic, like Protestant work ethic. If you're not productive, then you're not a good person. No, time management as a tool should be helping you to have more space for things that align with your purpose and things that you enjoy: rest, self-care, rejuvenation, being with family. So that is another kind of piece that came out of this time period. And it's so interesting, like when you struggle and you are having this very difficult time, we're having to learn all of these lessons, how much beauty can come out of that.
Yeah, on the surface, you wouldn't think that time management could have such a profound impact. But if you really think about it, I think that a lot, and I've said this before for those who watch this show, I think a lot of the um, angst that people have about their jobs or their life is that they don't have enough time for the things that matter to them. And so if you implement a time management system like the one you're talking about, then it actually makes space, makes room for the things, for your priorities and the things that you value, so that you're not stuck just doing all of the have tos, that there's plenty of room for the things that you want to do, the things that feed your soul.
Yes, and I love that you said that, because one connection that I forgot to make is that part of the reason why I came up with the time management is because I wanted to be able to do my podcast and to be able to do Her Guided Evolution while I was in my PhD program, a mom of 3 kids. I was just like, I have to have space for a creative outlet. I have to have space for doing something that isn't just reading scholarly articles, just like I love research, of course. but I have to have space for something else. I'm always have been a creative person. I remember being in kindergarten and getting best artist when I was in kindergarten. So like I've always been this creative person. And so time management, absolutely, it was my tool to continue doing the things that I needed to do, but also have space for this evolution that I wanted to have for myself as well.
So now you mentioned that the beyond productivity, you use that mostly with corporate clients, or do you do that with individuals as well?
Yes, interestingly, I started out working with individuals. And one of my first clients that I work with, she just kind of commented that one of the people that led her team was talking about this dramatic kind of shift that she had made as far as like being more productive. And so I started out targeting individuals with this, but most recently I've decided that I want to have a bigger impact and a broader impact. So I'm just like, okay, if this transform this one person's kind of perspective and view of time management, what can this do if I am helping a group of people at once? What is the impact that I can have? So yes, the corporate route I'm just transitioning into that now. But yeah, I started out with individuals and I just saw the dramatic shift that it had for people. And so I'm like, you know what? Technology companies and tech employees have some of the highest rates of mental health challenges, as well as there's a lot of burnout and productivity challenges. I love technology, that is my jam. Like, so it's just kind of like I just decided to kind of mesh things
Marry those.
together and realize this was a space that I think I can really be of service in.
Okay, all right. Now you also doing coaching with Her Guided Evolution?
Not now. I'm transitioning fully to corporate at this
Okay,
point. I'm still open to it. Like if there's someone out there just like, girl, please help me get my life and my schedule together. We can have a conversation,
sure,
but I am more so focused on like the corporate route. Her guided
sure.
evolution is more so like my creative space to have important conversations to promote this personal growth among women who may be feeling like, I have all of these commitments. What what does it look like if I created space for myself and for my
Mhm.
desires, my evolution, my personal development within that?
Yeah, that's so vitally important. Definitely. So
Yes.
we're getting to be out of time a little bit here. So if people are interested in working with you, if they want to listen to the podcast, they want to watch the YouTube channel. If we have some corporate persons who are working in IT and they want to know about beyond productivity, how can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me at shanicejonescameron.com. I am also Dr. Shanice J. Cameron on Instagram. I also have a Instagram for Her Guided Evolution. It's Her Guided Evolution on Instagram, as well as my YouTube channel. I have Her Guided Evolution, the podcast, as a playlist on the YouTube channel, but I've recently transitioned my YouTube channel. It is Shanice Jones Cameron on YouTube as well. And you can go to herguidedevolution.com for show notes and just more information, as well as beyondproductivity.com. Beyondproductivitymethod.com, excuse me.
So where do you see yourself going in the next year or two?
Yeah, so I definitely see myself continuing as a professor and doing my research and publishing my research. That's always kind of like the struggle of the tenure track faculty
Yeah.
is, research and prioritizing that. But I also see myself continuing her guided evolution, growing beyond productivity, and becoming more active in the technology corporate space. That's something that is really important to me because this is absolutely just another extension and part of like my passion and my purpose. So I just could see myself continuing to grow and evolve with her guided evolution beyond productivity as well as in the academy as well.
So if you were advising someone who was maybe at a crossroads career wise, or they were in a career and they're trying to figure out how to incorporate more things that speak to them, or that allow them to live in their authenticity. What is one piece of advice you can give them? Because and I ask this question because you seem to have done a very good job of this. Because while you also recognize the need for a space for your person, your self care, as well as a space for helping other women with their personal development, and honoring their self care, but also, incorporating in that the productivity piece. So if there's somebody who's trying to figure out, okay, I have this job, and this is kind of the main thing, the bread and butter, but there are these other parts of me that I want to honor too. What piece of advice would you give to them?
The piece of advice that I would give someone in that situation is to figure out what are your thoughts surrounding each task. That is the single most powerful piece of advice that I can offer. And the reason why I say that is a lot of times when we have this vision or this idea of things that we want to do that kind of runs counter to like the things that we have to do, a lot of times we have a lot of baggage and thoughts to unpack surrounding that thing that we
Mhm.
want to make time for versus the things that we have to do. So think about and figure out and observe your thoughts around each task. When you think about wanting to start that thing or do this thing or make time for yourself, what is going on in your mind? When you think about the stuff that you have to do in the areas where you may be procrastinating on what you have to do, what is going on in your mind in those moments of procrastination? So that is undoubtedly, if you all don't remember anything else that I said, please consider and think about what are my thoughts surrounding each task, and are those thoughts that are fueling and pulling and pushing me in the direction that I want to go? Or is it keeping me in a place where I'm stuck and just kind of spinning and stuck in this mindset of these are things that I have to do, but I don't have time for myself or anything else other than this? So consider and think about what are the thoughts that are driving you to approach your time and your task in this way.
Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna have to ask a follow-up though. So I'm looking at the thoughts, but then am I then auditing the thoughts? I'm looking at them, but then if the thoughts are not taking me where I want to go, that's in my right?
Yes, definitely evaluate the thoughts. And just a quick thing that I often do is I'll just kind of stillness and pausing, like, okay, I said I was going to work on this right now, but I'm browsing through Instagram. What's going on, girl? So something that I do is I will stop and I will just do a brain dump. I would just jot out everything that I'm thinking, noting how I'm feeling, and something about that process of getting it out of my head makes me just kind of feel like and clears the space so I can move forward in whatever direction that I need to go. So definitely, there's a journaling aspect to this as well. Write out everything you're feeling, do a brain dump. And one of the things that I also will often do is like, okay, here's how I'm currently thinking about it. If I was thinking about this differently, what would it look like? And I'll write out a set of alternative thoughts. And that is just kind of a way that I think can be very transformative as far as like clearing space and creating space in places where you find yourself kind of overwhelmed and kind of avoiding things that you previously decided that you want to do, but perhaps are feeling a little intimidated when you kind of lift
Right.
the look under the hood.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because it really is about connecting with yourself, which is something that we don't do nearly enough. So I appreciate that very much, that that you're encouraging people to take that time to connect with themselves, to ask questions. Okay, why am I procrastinating about this? Why am I not doing this? Or why do I have this feeling about this thing? There's so much. I tell people all the time that all of the answers really that we seek are inside of us, and the reason that we can't get to them is that we don't take enough time to really check in with ourselves, and to wait to hear back, and all of those kinds of things. So I appreciate that response. Thank you. um And thank you for coming on tonight. Good luck with her guided evolution and also beyond productivity. Because, like I said, you really hit on a lot of important areas. I think it's important that we are constantly evolving. I don't believe that we were ever meant to stay the same. We're always supposed to be learning and growing and changing. So I think that's why the title of your podcast and your business resonated with me so much. And then, again, we talked about the productivity piece as well, just that it allows space for the things that feed your spirit and your soul. So thank you for the services that you're providing to women and to others, and of course to your students. So if you guys are interested in any of those things, we're going to put all of Dr. Shanice's information in the comments and the show notes. And I'm sure she would be love to have you as a follower. Certainly check out the podcast and the YouTube channel. And we will see you all next week. Take care
Thank
and have a
you.
wonderful week. And again, thank you, Dr. Shanice.
Of course, thank you.